transformative justice I know is when the person who is guilty is put inside and punished. All the people who should be in prison are out in charge. And I think to the degree that we get them inside, we are transformed. You know, the business and the anti-rape movement in a number of places, but I know only the UK, I'm afraid. And in India, indeed. You know, the women want their rapist found guilty and punished. And once they do that, as soon as they are punished, you know, men take a bit more care. In the Ujamaa villages, they didn't have any domestic violence. Why? Because the men didn't approve of it, because the women wouldn't allow it. You know, that is what justice is transformative. What we face as women, as people of color, as third world people, as immigrants, as undocumented, as people who are vulnerable, is that the state is against us rather than acting for us. We know this. It is the police, but it is every arm of the state, including the media, acting against us. And every time we give them enough blows so that they have to give us a bit of justice, we are transformed. Our power is greater, and our movement grows. And I think, you know, I think there's something very transformative about justice. Yes. Yes. Look, you better say it. Go ahead, let's say it.
No, okay, that's half the story, okay? We are not in favor of criminalization, and you know, I mean, whole communities of poor people, largely, have been criminalized all over the world. I mean, the US leads the way, and Britain leads the way in Europe, because it follows everything the US does since, you know, 1979. So we are definitely, you know, we believe there are a lot of people in prison who should not be there.
Most.
Okay? I mean, yes, women for a start. Most women who are in prison are not even there for a violent crime. That's even true of most men, probably. You know, and in any case, I mean, there are things like life without parole, which are just torture. You know, I mean, people are being tortured. And the strike has been very involved in supporting the prisoners' rights movement here and in the UK, and we were involved in supporting the hunger strike of prisoners, etc. So I don't want you to get the impression that we're a law and order lobby, you know, lock them out, because we're not. But on the other hand, you know, we're not in a system where you can just say, oh yes, let's not put anybody in prison. Because there is such a thing as the rapist and the man who, you know, terrorizes women with domestic violence for 10, 20, 30 years and gets away with it. And when women get ourselves together to actually say, no, I will not stand for this anymore, I will not be your victim anymore, and I'm going to report you and get you arrested, you have to have justice, because if you don't have justice, it destroys you. You know, the man who is then freed, we are facing in Britain at the moment cases of rape victims who report rape and are themselves prosecuted, accused of making a false allegation. I'm talking about women who did not make a false allegation. I'm talking about women whom the police decide they're going to go after the woman, because let's face it, police like rapists. Many police are rapists and police, exactly, yeah. And police, anyway, I could go on.
I love that. So I just want to say briefly, and I think Hillary also wants to say something. I speak as a survivor of sexual assault. I speak as someone with an adult who's been in my life, who's been in prison for rape. I've been, one of my aunts has been in prison for crack cocaine use for all of her adult life. And none of them have been transformed in any way by the prison experience. I would not want the person who sexually assaulted me to be in prison. I don't think that would be the transformation for him. What I would love to see is for someone to actually take the time to work with him on the mental illness that created the conditions for violence in my life, and to take the time with all of the folks who are perpetuating that violence. I don't think the prison is a transformative space, even though I do think justice is a transformative experience, and I think they should be pulled apart. I do think that we have the capacity as humans for something else. So when I say transformative justice, I think of it in the Angela Davis sense of like going to the root of the problem and pulling it out of the root instead of perpetuating. That's all I need. And I don't think that, even as we break through these situations and more, Rekia Boyd, Ayanna Stanley Jones, all these folks are getting killed. I live in Detroit. Every morning someone is being shot, someone has been killed, someone's been strangled. It's happening all the time. Those conditions won't change because their perpetrators go to prison. That removes the surface level of the problem, but it doesn't get to the root, which is people who are poor are going to attack others for resources. Those who are told that they're worth nothing are going to internalize that and begin to behave that way. So for me, I think the healing work is what I'm interested in. I know that's longer term work. So I think there's like, how do we deal with the immediate and the longer term? And I want to uplift a group here called Generation 5 that works in the Bay. They talk about how do we end child sexual abuse in 5 generations? And I think that's the kind of lens we have to have, these longer lenses where it's like we have this situation, but who becomes a child sexual abuser, right? Someone usually who has abused themselves that way. Who becomes a violent attacker of women? Someone who learns to hate women at a very young age. That's a societal problem. How do we start to address that at the root instead of saying, okay, go into a system with a bunch of other people who are just like that and teach each other to hate more, and then there's no rehabilitation, nothing happens. So,
do you think the policeman who killed Michael Brown should be prosecuted and locked up?
I believe absolutely that there should be justice for the policeman who killed Mike Brown. I also feel like there's an interesting question in St. Louis, right, of like, what does that mean? Because taking him off the street and locking him away would not in any way transform the conditions of St. Louis. Do you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't actually change what's happening on the street there. Another policeman would show up in his place because the system is what wants a young man like Mike Brown to die. Okay?
Let me just
Hillary wanted to
go
say
over here.